write hit pieces on Donald Trump or Trump allies. Biden from the White House replied to reporters that regulators should look into Elon Musk. All 11 agencies targeting Elon Musk. Biden from the White House had asked the U.S. government, replied to reporters that regulators should look into Elon Musk, and that 11 different U.S. government regulatory agencies, regulatory bodies and agencies were pursuing adverse action against all four of those very agencies that Reuters was won its Pulitzer for writing hit pieces about. This is by the way a little bit of a there's the same sort of moral hazard here that you have with USAID sponsoring the OCCRP. Your hit piece journalists that only have the capacity to do that because their revenues and their profits are being buffered by the American taxpayer, and those, even though the grants are not explicitly to the U.S. To do that, right? Like, there's no grant from the Biden, a Biden government agency of the $300 million that says write hit pieces on Donald Trump, or Trump allies. Just like the money to OCCRP, the corruption reporting probe, is supposed to be for corruption for politicians and oligarchs and significant cultural figures in Eastern Europe. But in the process of doing that, OCCRP turned around and dug up dirt on Rudy Giuliani and his work in Ukraine, and that formed part of the basis to impeach Donald Trump as president in the Ukraine impeachment in 2019. So American citizens who voted for Donald Trump effectively funded, through Donald Trump's USAID, the impeachment of Donald Trump. They also dug up dirt on Paul Manafort and other U.S. citizens, but in that case, it was, you can argue, dirtier than the Reuters case because the grants were to dig up dirt. In the Reuters case, it's complicated. You see this with just a huge quantity of U.S. media because. So let me start from the bottom here. Premium subscriptions are part of news agencies' business models. Paywalls. Almost every major media outlet has paywalls for their news content. And part of the justification for the U.S. government paying U.S. media companies sounds benign on its face. We want our government officials, our hired employees who are representing you, to be as best equipped and to be as knowledgeable as possible about their line of business representing you as possible. And so they need to have as much information as possible. And so we pay premium subscriptions to you for foreign-facing activity to U.S. To U.S. media companies who are the best in business, or sometimes the only, or some of the only, people who provide that needed proprietary service. So a great example of this is with the Reuters case, because when I talked about the Reuters case, a lot of people, there's still a scandal there and a moral hazard in the system that needs to be reformed. But a lot of people ran away with it and sort of presupposed, when they read this, that meant that it was like a direct pay to play. Now, we don't know that if there was or wasn't, if there was back channel conversations, if there was an informal phone call. I'm not suggesting there was, or if it's simply the incentives align. These are the people giving you the money. They're targeting Trump. Because this was the other thing is all 11 agencies targeting Trump, targeting Elon Musk, were paying to the non-news agency side of Reuters, who was digging up the dirt that the regulatory agencies could use to go after Elon Musk. The same thing for OCCRP. USAID funds the hit piece journalists. The hit piece journalists dig up dirt. The prosecutors then use that dirt as the basis to arrest them. And then you have a USAID big fat bow on top of it with an accomplishment section saying, ta-da, 456 arrests that we sponsored. But in this case, for example, the Justice Department under the Biden administration paid tens of millions of dollars. It was something like $60 million to Reuters for Westlaw, because Thomson Reuters has properties. They have their news agency side. They have a tool for legal folks, for legal research. LexisNexis and Westlaw dominate that space. So the Justice Department is paying for Westlaw, and they're tens of millions of dollars padding the profits of a portfolio company of Thomson Reuters. But that's every one of those million is less that they need to make in their news line, because they're still being, their profits are still being pumped up for the network, and they are still picking heavy winners and losers in domestic politics. Like, for example, what if they were paying Raytheon? What if the Defense Department was paying Raytheon, continually, as it does, billions of dollars in defense contracts, and Raytheon opens up a new line of business called Raytheon Media LLC. And Raytheon Media LLC has a basically explicit media purpose to target Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, Republicans like Bill Kristol. I mean, just straight up, just like the Washington Post, just like Reuters, just like no objectivity. In fact, they even just like the Washington Post and the all the different journalistic things said, we're going to end whataboutism. Objectivity is no longer an underpinning credo of our reporting, because we believe both sides makes misinformation spread. So we do need to pick winners and losers in this. And Trump doubled Raytheon's Pentagon contracts to Raytheon. So the contracts aren't going directly to Raytheon Media. They're going to Raytheon Military LLC. But now Raytheon Media doesn't have to make a dime, because their margins, their revenues are padded up the wazoo by a huge cash infusion to a sister line of business. You see this everywhere. Newsguard, for example, one of the most notorious private sector for-profit censorship mercenary firms, with the former head of NATO on its board, the former head of DHS on its board, the former head of the State Department's Global Engagement Center on its board, you name it. Mark Milley, the former head of the CIA, NSA, I'm sorry, not Mark Milley, General Michael V. Hayden, the former head of the CIA, NSA, four-star general, on its board. They got a $750,000 Pentagon contract, nominally for the purpose of helping the Pentagon, scan the internet to help scan and ban, Chinese and Russian propaganda online. Now, as this new MAGA foreign policy coalition and base has to navigate the tension between foreign ops and domestic interests, we have to navigate what the role is of countering foreign influence and countering foreign propaganda, squaring that with the fact that that was the exact predicate used to take out hundreds of thousands and arguably millions of Trump supporters at home when Trump was called a Russian asset. And Trump was just like Putin. Trump equals Putin. The FBI is saying it. The CIA is saying it. And you had tens of thousands of American citizens who are rolled up in these very groups who were supposed to be focused on Russia, making the argument that, well, these Americans are being an unwitting or unwitting vassal of talking points from Russia. So now we get to put them in these blacklist database. Now we get to, so that's a tension that has to be navigated. But the point is, however you navigate it, that $750,000 Pentagon grant to Newsguard was not explicitly for Newsguard to create advertiser blacklists to target Steven Crowder and Ben Shapiro and Prager University and Fox News hosts and virtually every populist right-wing media conduit for the man who is now the sitting democratically elected president of the United States. But it's the same Raytheon Media thing. So we need to create firewalls so there's no domestic bleed. If you volunteer to accept a U.S. government contract for foreign-facing work from any foreign-facing agency, whether that's state, whether that's aid, whether that's DOD, whether that's a confidential CIA service. That's another thing, right? Reuters does serve CIA services. They have a whole intelligence assistance wing, so they're getting paid by the CIA and the DOD. Again, this is the It's not the Reuters media line, but it's the sort of strategic intelligence and whatnot. But this problem pops up everywhere with all these news. But then you do have another problem. So you have that USAID Truman Show that comes up from that. But then you also have the other one, which is that we actually do fund a lot of these U.S. media outlets to operate in foreign countries. And and then they also operate at home. So they sort of are being in a direct arm of the State Department for what the grant is doing, and then they're coming back and using that. So, for example, a great example is like our fact checkers, right? Independent fact checkers. My asthma. Okay. There's no such thing as an independent fact checker. This entire field was created by the U.S. State Department.
No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.